What if Miyazaki, the genius behind Studio Ghibli, wrote the story for Zelda Tears of the Kingdom? How would it change? Imagine a young and insecure Ganondorf doing his best to become a good leader to the Gerudo, a role he never chose, never desired, but one that he's been dedicating his whole life to fulfill. Imagine a desert teeming with vegetation, the mastery of Gerudo irrigation systems spreading life in beautiful patterns. Now imagine Ganondorf at the very edge of the canals, observing a row of dried out reeds with a concerned expression, shadowed by his chemist, Nara. "It's worse than it looks, sire," says Nara. Ganondorf pulls a curled brown leaf from the reeds and with a scowl, he watches a breeze crumble it to dust. "How bad?" he asks softly. "According to my estimation, in less than 100 years, perhaps as few as 70, the whole water system might be reduced to nothing but a shallow pool around Karakara." The chemist closes her eyes and massages her temples. "We'll lose 15% of our crops in the first 10 years or so. In time, the clay will turn to sand. 15% is enough of a disaster. Our cities grow, and we're already struggling to feed our people." His voice trembles as he talks. Only the dried stem of the leaf remains in between his fingers. "And you mentioned, it's a natural process, sire. There's nothing we can do about it." "Nothing we can do," says Ganondorf so quietly that nobody else hears. "No, I can't let this happen." What if Ganondorf was a good villain? Okay, let's step back for a second. Here's some context. At this point, we all know that Tears of the Kingdom is the Zelda game that drew the most from Studio Ghibli's works, and particularly from Princess Mononoke. Corruption looks almost the same in both, and I enjoy those inspirations, the beautiful melancholy of the Sky Islands and the mystery of underground worlds. But as someone who studies Miyazaki's writing closely, I know Zelda's narrative feels very distant from a Studio Ghibli tale. Would Zelda be better if it was written by Miyazaki? Not necessarily, that's not what I'm trying to say. But definitely it would appeal more to a different audience. And if you like Studio Ghibli, this audience might be you. So what could we change to make it more Ghibli? Not only the aesthetic and thematic references, but the way the characters live their lives. Let's infuse our Zelda characters with some of Miyazaki's character traits, shall we? I think the biggest difference here would be the role of the villain. And we'll get back to this alternate Ganondorf I mentioned at the start. But before that, let's talk about Link's arm. At the beginning of the game, there's this moment of trauma. And it looks like Link's ravaged arm will carry the symbolic representation of this trauma throughout the story. A motif you might have already recognized from Princess Mononoke. But instead, this curse immediately turns into a blessing. Link receives a new and powerful arm, capable of great feats of magic at no personal cost. This story beat might make sense from a game design perspective, but I don't think Miyazaki would let that pass. And we know that because we've seen him doing something quite different. Link's fate could be closer to Prince Ashtaka's. We would play the whole game cursed by malice, and that malice could help us, the players, feel the weight of the world. Let me explain. We've played a cursed and shunned Link in other Zelda games. We know this can be weaved into the story. And just like Wolf Link and Prince Ashtaka, we would find ways to use our malice, our curse, for good. So much so that we might even forget that the power we've been using is corrupted. One of Tears of the Kingdom's most intense moments is the first time you encounter this enemy, Gloomhands. This terrifying foe that emerges from the ground, changes the music, everything turns red. It's a scare. But what if you were Gloomhands? Picture that. You enter Kakariko, or another town you remember and love from the previous game, and when you're right in the middle of it, Gloomhands emerge from Link and start destroying houses and hurting people. When you try to run back, the joystick fights you. Your gloom hands latch onto things and prevent you from running away. When you open the map to teleport, Malice covers the menu, and for the first time you can't teleport away. You need to run, fighting your own curse and destroying everything on your path out.
This would have more emotional impact than just a scare. This would scar you as a character and as a player.
All around Hyrule, you'd hear NPCs shaking as they tell you of Kakariko's demon, without knowing they're right in front of who they fear most. This would turn Link into a true outcast, surviving on the outskirts of civilization until he found a way to control his curse. Players would climb mountains and look down at Tarrey Town or Zora's Domain, knowing they couldn't enter those places without defiling them. This stigma, this conflict between being shunned and still trying to do his best, would have given Link so much more emotional charge than just being some destined swordsman.
So this is how I think Link could change into a more Ghibli-esque character, more like Princess Tucker. But as I mentioned before, the biggest shift here is Ganondorf.
Not the demon king we see, a force of pure evil that serves no narrative purpose other than being something to defeat, but a character we can understand and even sympathize with. What if he was more like my favorite Ghibli villain, Lady Eboshi? A villain who's evil, sure, but in many ways she's a really noble person, a hero who's just ill-informed, too focused on her own idea of good to see the other side.
After finding out his land was fated to dry out, the next memory we get shows Ganondorf putting himself at risk. He is out on the desert, alone, and something approaches from below. When the Molduga snaps, Ganondorf is ready for it. With a swift movement, he avoids the bite and jumps on the back of the beast. Yes, that is a Dune reference. Leave me alone.
He rides the creature, and we see him thinking to himself, this could work. For the sake of storytelling, let's just pretend that this area on the map here had been more important since Breath of the Wild. In this version of the story, we'll call it Goddess's Lake. This would be the place where you meet Satori, and the whole region would be directly associated with spirits and mysticism.
And this is very important because
later on, in the court of King Rauru, we don't see an arrogant Ganondorf, but a pleading one. Your message has left us speechless, Ganondorf, says Rauru from his throne. We can't imagine how difficult this must be for you and your people. But remember, you are not alone. I've already mobilized a task force to send you aid supplies even before the canals dry out. You are most kind, Your Grace, replies Ganondorf, his right arm crossing his chest and his head bowed low. It is the least we can do for our loyal subjects, continues the king. And we're all very impressed with the leadership you've shown in those trying times. Now, is there anything else I can do for you? If I may be so bold, Your Grace, there is. With his body still lowered, Ganondorf opens his eyes and looks up at his king. We've found a way to tame and ride the Molduga. Whispers fill the royal hall. The desert beasts? Asks King Rauru. Yes, Your Grace, continues Ganondorf, hope seeping into his words for the first time. And with their help, we can dig mighty tunnels. We can use the Molduga to turn Gerudo Canyon into a river again, like it was millennia ago, bringing water from Goddess's Lake to the... I, interrupts the king, cannot allow this. Silence covers the room like a coffin lid. But, Your Grace, continues Ganondorf after a while, his gaze falling to the floor, my people will starve. You don't understand, says Rauru. Your kind doesn't speak to the spirits like mine do. If we stop nurturing them, malice will spread. They are the ones who keep it at bay. But fear not, we will send food. The king keeps talking, but Ganondorf barely listens. But how about 3 centuries from now? He says, so softly nobody hears. Will your distant descendants honor your word? Won't they keep the Gerudo on a short leash, as we'll depend on them? We'll make sure to use whatever's left in Karakara to its full potential, and we will send engineers to oversee The king continues his speech, but the bowing man in front of him is lost in his own thoughts. You would rather feed the dead? A wrinkle crosses Ganondorf's brow. Then, my people?
This is a villain I can root for. He's about to make a huge mistake, and we'll get there, but we know why he was pushed to such a mistake. He wants to be a good leader. Imagine the weight of responsibility. He was born a king.
I do not wish to contradict you, sire, says Nara, peering around the tomb uncomfortably, her torch raised high. But upon the current circumstances, I don't think we should be paying respects to our ancestors. Our people need guidance. When I was a child, you brought me here, says Ganondorf, ignoring her advice. And you taught me the last Gerudo man before me 100 years ago slayed a creature of pure malice. Lit by torchfire stands the statue of a muscular Gerudo man. His left palm is half open as he delicately cocoons a petrified warm Safina, the flower of the desert. His right arm is raised proudly, and his stony hand grips a bright red ruby that gleams despite the little light. That creature, continues Ganondorf, left this behind, a crystallized heart, a thing of pure power. But the power is foul, sire. Only once he tried to use it. Nara's voice grows colder as she scrutinizes the ruby. And that day, it rained blood. Ganondorf looks back at her. He hasn't slept in days. His eyes are droopy. Yes, it rained. Understanding dawns on Nara's face. Is it possible, he asks, with a big enough reservoir? Her eyes dart around as her imagination engineers the rain collector and the chambers it needs to decant water from the rest of the blood. It might work. Ganondorf turns back to the statue and looks it right in the eye. I know you didn't want me to do this. Lit by torchlight, the stony eyes feel alive. But I hope one day you'll be proud of me.
Of course, there's a lot more to happen here, but at this point you already understood how different this Ganondorf is. How, just like Lady Eboshi, his priorities are set and he will do anything to protect the weak under his responsibility. But we must also understand in what way he is mistaken, how his ignorance would turn to disaster if King Rauru didn't interfere. So let's come back to Link's journey. How does he find out?
Like Prince Ashtaka understanding both Lady Eboshi's reality and also the forest reality, we need our hero to go on a journey towards perspective. One that must change him body and soul. So instead of exploring the depths, our Link explores the world of the dead. Not a land of terror and challenge, but a place of outworldly beauty. We don't get to fight here, we are a stranger in those glimmering lands, and to advance, we must learn more and more words in the language of the dead. Each word is like a chiming bell, and we can only progress, we can only solve the puzzles if we figured out what the word means. And it's like that, little meaning by little meaning, that the words reveal the nature of the spirits down below.
Enough to understand that once you die, you spend eternity fighting malice, so that the living can live. It's order and entropy, it's life fighting for life in a universe that's mostly dead, not unlike ours. And Ganondorf, despite his good intentions, was tipping the scale towards malice. He thought he was giving the Gerudo a new hope, but in truth, he was putting everybody at mortal risk, especially the Gerudo. If enough damage is done, if he's not stopped, all life in Hyrule will end.
In our final confrontation, we don't get to see a hateful Ganondorf, much on the contrary. I've observed you, Link. I've even... Ganondorf pauses, breaking eye contact. cheered for you at times. Silly, right? All over his arms and exposed torso, the malice marks shine bright scarlet. He takes a deep breath, and their colors subside to a faint red, not unlike old blood. I kept thinking, continues Ganondorf, were our roles reversed, I'd probably bring my sword to fight you. And observing my opponent, I wouldn't stop to question my actions, even as my own malice marks grew. Link shoots a quick glance to his right arm. The malice marks are already way past his shoulder now. Did you notice the sword that seals the darkness will not react to me? The sword that had shone defiantly as Link enters the room is now as lifeless as any piece of scrap metal. It reacts to malice, not to me. And it reacts as much to your malice as mine. Ganondorf drops both his swords to the ground. I'm not your enemy, Link. You're the only one I've got. The only one who also dared to tame this filth and use it for good. I never wanted to hurt anyone, and I also know you didn't. I saw your face, Link. When malice first took control, I saw your face. Just like Ashtaka did, we might try to avoid a final confrontation. This is what the spirits would want us to do. A final chime in a world full of malice might give us hope.
But no, this song is a sad one. Just like Lady Eboshi, Ganondorf will not stop. He has a strong sense of duty. He believes he's doing good. As we seal away the malice, we lose our arm, this time for good. And we see Ganondorf crying the true tears of the kingdom.
There's a lot in Miyazaki's work that's about that, about recognizing the kindness, the love in people, without shying away from mistakes, from ignorance, from suffering. Sometimes people are wrong. It doesn't make them bad people necessarily, but it takes a true hero to see both sides, to witness the world with eyes unclouded by hate.
And as an artist learning how to tell touching stories, I also want to honor that middle path, that journey that doesn't lead to victory, but to balance, to understanding. I hope you enjoyed my Tears of the Mononoke. My name is Jariam, I'm a Brazilian writer, and this channel is where I explore the beauty of words. Please subscribe and comment if you enjoyed this video. This is how you tell the algorithm, hey, that was nice. By the way, I have a full Studio Ghibli analysis playlist. If you like that, I'm also linking one of my favorite videos here. A special thank you to my patrons. Sometimes it's 1 AM and I haven't finished a script. Then I remember there's people who believe in me. Then at 2 AM, I do have a finished script and a smile. Thank you so much for that smile. And I'll see you folks next time. Ciao.